I am here to tell the story of my daughter, Jayla Michelle, who lost her life to fentanyl poisoning.
I received a phone call on April 26th at exactly 10:13 a.m. to inform me that my daughter had passed away.
Jayla was a wild firecracker, I would say. She was a very curious child, very smart, loving, kind. She never met a stranger. She was always the shoulder that her friends would lean on. She was a student athlete who participated in, several sports. She cheered, she played softball. She was in NJROTC at her school for 4 years. Growing up, she was the boss, and she kept that mentality, her entire life, I would say.
Different in a good way. Uh, like school. School came easy to her. She excelled. She was in the PATS program. She played, she did shot put in middle school, 4-year NJROTC, softball, volleyball, cheerleading, and chorus, I believe. Matter of fact, I know chorus because that was her thing right there, singing. But she's just creative. She even wrote this little book series that her mom and I still have on the sheets that she wrote it on. She never did anything major with it. Never got it like published actually, but we still have them at the house. It was I forgot the name of it, Detective Lotso or something like that. Pretty cool. Some type of animal detective. Definitely cool. But she was just creative. She was caring. And I think a lot of times people confused her bluntness and openness as disrespect, but she was very blunt. Um, she met disrespect with just, her outwardness. If she felt like you disrespected her, she was going to either disrespect you back or she was going to tell you, like, don't talk to me like that, or, whatever it may have been. But she stood up for herself.
Labeled a gifted student in fourth grade, and was always given opportunity. Was a part of the Take Stock Children, where she received a full scholarship to attend a university in Florida. So she did make it out, and got recognized in many ways for her grades.
So that's how she was as a kid and as an adult. She didn't really change much. I think she did realize that people are gonna use you if you let them, and so she tried her best to get away from those type of people. Like even leading up to her passing, we're learning that she started to reconnect with some of her early childhood friends from elementary school and middle school. I don't know if they reached out or she reached out, but we noticed that reconnection, and some of her friends that she met, because like she had graduated high school in 2021, and so she had met this just slew of different people, which again in hindsight, we know that was the size of, her using and changing the circle that she was in. But like I said, before her passing, it was almost like she knew she was in trouble with whatever she was doing. So she was kind of rescuing herself by bandaging herself with the friends that she knew wanted what was best for her.
We kind of missed all the signs. She had the change in circles and things of that nature. She did have, small dynamic where at one point she was not living with my husband and I. She was living with her grandmother by choice. And there were, a bit leniency there where she could go and kind of do, a lot more. I felt like that's why she kind of drifted, away from us in our household. Because I was a very like in your face parent. Like I was all in her stuff, and she couldn't get over on us. And so we're learning now that her friends are saying that she potentially or did, I don't know if there's a confirmation, but there was rumors and things that she was doing Percocets in high school. But however, we miss those signs. We miss the signs of a potential addiction. She had a few surgeries in her young adult life or high school years. She had a dental surgery, major, and then she also had an abscess where she had to get it removed. So she was put on prescription medication, but I don't feel like it was monitored, in the way that it should, or in that is where she got a taste of, the euphoria, the high, or how it makes you feel, because they are prescription medications meant to relieve your pain. But they're addictive, and you can become addicted, to that. So yeah, those are the things that we're finding out now. It's not something we ever talked to her about or had the opportunity. I didn't walk through an addiction, with Jayla. I learned of her addiction and the things that she did after her death.
She was great at hiding that. But simultaneously, I have to take accountability. We just didn't pay it enough attention because there were signs. There were signs that I look back when I'm not talking about, being high or anything like that. I'm just talking about obvious stuff that she wouldn't normally do. For instance, like her younger siblings were her babies, pretty much like her children. And so she would always want to come see them because she was grown, so she had moved out on her own, but she want to come by and see them and hang out or whatever. And we even wanted her to keep them a couple of times, and she was saying no. But the last time she said it, because the no is she's grown, she got her own life, but the last time she said it, and she said she was in a bad space and they don't deserve that. And we didn't know what that meant, but we just thought it was life struggles, because she had her share of those. But one of the biggest signs was the fact that she moved to Texas in the end of 2023. And even that was odd because she had paid for a Disney trip, and Disney is her thing. I don't care how old she would have gotten, she would have always loved Disney. That's just her thing. And so she had this Disney trip planned. She had bought some tickets to the Orlando Magic games to go while she was down there with the person she was with at the time. And then up at 11 o'clock one night, she comes by the house and she tells her mom and I, hey, I just wanted to come see you guys and my babies before I left. I'm getting ready to move to Texas. And when she said getting ready to move, we're like, oh, okay, when you going? And she said, right after I leave here. And we were like, that's weird. But one of the biggest signs about it, because that's another sign, like she just canceled everything in Orlando and just went to Texas out of nowhere. But it got weirder because she was married at one point. She was married till her demise, but she was married. So I asked her that night about her husband, and she told me, you call him, you reach out to him. I'm not with him anymore. And so she referenced her boyfriend at the time. And my response was, and again, I said this out of pure ignorance about substance use, but it was, I don't know what you see in that junkie. And what stood out now is she said, why did you call him that? But it wasn't a upset. It was more of an inquiry. Like, how do you know almost? And that was her body language and everything. And so I said to her, I know a junkie when I see one. and she never came back around in person. We talked to her on the phone, we FaceTimed her, but the next time I seen her in person, she was at the funeral home under that cover. And so her not coming back around should have been a clear sign of her, dabbling into whatever it was he was into. So yeah, definitely missed signs.
For us, it was a normal day. We, got up, had a client that morning, and after that client, my husband got a phone call. And in his tone, I could tell that something was, bad. Something extremely horrible had taken place, but I wasn't sure what.
When I got the call, I remember the person said that she had been shot, actually. And that was just word on the street, if you will. Yeah, she had been shot, is what they said. And I, at first, as a matter of fact, I remember I asked him, I said, Jayla who? And that was just, me reacting because I don't know any other Jayla. And so they said, you're Jayla. And so that's when like the world stood still. And as a matter of fact, there was a few other exchanges in between that I asked him, I said, they said they had received that call. And I asked them, I was like, well, how sure did the person on the other end sound? And they was like, they were pretty serious. And that's when I knew, it was true. I could tell by the change of tone in the person that I was speaking to. And I then began to wonder how I was going to, break that news to my wife. But before I could really gather how I was going to say this or how this was going to come out or where we were going to go, because we were in the middle of doing things for a magazine that we were trying to launch at the time. And so I was trying to just ponder on what am I going to say, what am I going to do, and she could tell that something was wrong, because I remember right before, again, it was more of a confirmation response. It was my wife saying, what's going on? She could, I guess, see something on my face. She was like, what's going on? And I heard that once. But after that, I just remember her moving her hands and like kind of, I guess she was raising her voice. I didn't hear it, but I could see the gestures. It was almost like the scene from a movie. And just as it was with the cars passing by, because we were still in the vehicle at the time of the call. And I didn't hear the whipping sounds or anything. It was pretty movie-like. And so at that point, while I'm still trying to figure out what do I say and how do I say it, my mother-in-law called. And I'm still in panic mode, so I know what she's calling for. So I snatched the phone from my wife. But before I could understand what was really going on, I snatched her phone and then I gave her my phone with the person still on it.
I remember him in his absent mind, passing me the phone, and the person on the other end was saying, why did I get a phone call that Jayla is dead?
I haven't even told the person that I was giving her the phone. I was just reacting. And when I gave her the phone, the person told her.
Did she just say, what I heard? And what Jayla? My Jayla?
Between that moment and the end of both calls, it's pretty much a blur. I don't remember a whole lot of that, but I do remember after the calls ended, my wife was like, let's go to her house.
I don't know why, but my instinct was to go to her house. We did not know anything had occurred at her house or what had taken place, with her. But my instinct was to go to her house, and we arrived last on the scene. We were the last to be called.
And again, it was a movie-like thing. I remember driving through the red lights, through the stop signs, and when we got to the the house down the street. We seen people from afar as we was rolling up in the road, and I began to shake and panic. And when we got closer, we seen the yellow tape. And before that, a couple of weeks before that, we had been constantly watching cold case files. And so we had been seeing this yellow tape, police, crime scene, yada, yada, yada. And so when rolling up to the house, it was almost like we were in our episode. And it was just completely tragic. Didn't know what to do. I remember I began to get emotional. I can remember the car rolling, so obviously I let my foot off the brakes and the gas pedal. And I just dropped my head, and the car started moving. But then I hear this god-awful wailing from the passenger seat, which obviously was my wife. And, I had to figure out to, just get myself together. And I had to go to her rescue. I mean, I had never heard a scream like that in my life. And so, we sat there, and for about 3 hours, longest 3 hours of my life, honestly. Then we got out of the car, I don't know if he was medical examiner's office or PPD or whatever, but he came over and said some words to us, handed us a card, and let us know that they would be bringing her out. And that's pretty much what happened. We watched them bring her out under a blue quilt comforter type thing, and they loaded her up and took her away.
So when we got there was no fire truck, there was no ambulance, there was a full-blown crime scene, the kind that you see on a movie, with yellow tape, and everybody standing about, your bystanders. And essentially, I wasn't aware, where she was or what had happened.
As the days went by and the hours went by, we were hearing about an overdose. And our thoughts were, that's not really possible. Like, she's not involved in that type of behavior, those type of things. And, of course, 6 weeks later, we found out that it was indeed an overdose, fentanyl overdose.
Essentially, we found out, through toxicology that, which took about 6 weeks, that she had fentanyl in her system, along with alcohol and marijuana. And marijuana and alcohol, we knew that she did, but we did not know she totally overindulged in alcohol, like was an alcoholic, struggled with that addiction. We don't know, how it was consumed. First Medical District Office can't tell us that. I don't know if she was trying to try something new, or was she trying an Oxy or a Percocet or something of that, a pill, a lace pill. All we have is, bits and pieces of some of that story. But we do know that pure fentanyl was the only thing in her system. And she had enough to kill 10 people. Her investigation's still open. All I can say is that, she wasn't alone. But she was called at about 8:30 in the morning, about 8:39, April the 26th. Again, last on the scene, we did not get there, or we didn't get the call until after 10. And there's still, things that they're trying to piece together, but there's only so much that they can do. There are only so many cases that they're working on at a time. So, while they're doing their thing, my husband and I are doing our thing as much as we can, because The hardest thing in it all is not knowing exactly what happened and what took place, where she got it from, but then also not having any sort of closure in leads or, a person to charge or anything of that nature. So I'm still hopeful in that, but she does have an investigation that's still open. Our detective is great, and so he has made us aware and abreast of some of those things, and so we're grateful for that. And he does this all the time, but he's seen her, in her last moments, and as a mom, I didn't get to do that. I didn't get to hold her hand. I didn't get to see her face until right before her viewing. And so I actually last saw her in the flesh, and I would say, face to face in 2023 before she, made an abrupt move to Texas. And in that, excuse me, we were just kind of shell shocked in that nature, but we didn't ever go back to a potential substance of any sort, or the substance causing her to do this, or just her making abrupt decisions and bad decisions where maybe she was running from someone. I mean, we don't know, but she did move to Texas, so she celebrated her last birthday gone, her last birthday on earth gone, and her last Christmas gone, her last Thanksgiving gone, her last Halloween gone. She loved Halloween. And so all of those memories that we could have made never happened, and it never will.
And we didn't even know what fentanyl was. We had heard about it, kind of. I would say mobbing through the streets, if you will, and taking lives. But we didn't know what it was. I had, as a matter of fact, I received a phone call about 2 months before that saying this guy that I had knew had passed away from fentanyl in his grandmother's garage. And my response to the person on that call was, "Oh man, that's sad." But I never, tried to research what is fentanyl because I haven't heard of it. But I ignored it all. And then that's when, it hit my front door 2 months later. And now it's probably any question you ask me about fentanyl or most illicit drugs or street drugs, I probably can answer them.
She had the brightest smile, but behind that smile was a lot of pain, and some agony that we didn't know, at the time in learning in my education. Now I could potentially, be able to recognize that, be able to think beyond just being a parent that, oh, she's just having a bad day, or they're just having a bad day, or, it's just her being her, Jayla being Jayla.
We didn't know that she was even engaging in any of that. We found out after her tox report came back, and then we got her phone and was able to go through it and see a lot of things like some of the drug emojis. She was talking with this guy who had a dragon, which normally stands for like heroin and stuff. So we was finding quite a bit. Her, searching for shrooms like badly. It was like she was really, really fiending for that. So we found a lot of this out, later on. However, there were family members who was well aware of what she was doing in her substance use, and they, I guess, didn't feel it was important to tell us.
I do have her music, which is great. Like I said earlier, she was a great an avid, passionate singer. Never sung on a big stage, but always, we have her videos of, in bars and clubs and things of that nature where she would sing, do karaoke and stuff like that. She was, I would say, the life of the party in so many ways, so many good ways. But we do have that to listen to, and it just brings me hope, every day.
Learn about everything that you have a stigma towards. If you stigmatize something, dive deeper into it. Just learn a little more about it. And if you still look at it the same way, hey, it is what it is. But 9 times out of 10, when you do your research and you dive deeper into whatever it may be, you'll get a different understanding, a different perspective. And although you may not be able to be sympathetic towards whatever it may be as a whole, you'll learn that it's not as simple as you were making it. So that's one of the things that we do. We started a nonprofit organization in her name called Jayla's Voice. And one of our main things is to teach parents the signs that we missed. Rumor has it that Jayla started experimenting with substances in like 10th grade. And again, that she passed away at 21, so that tells you how much time that she was, dabbling into that. And we didn't know the signs, and we didn't know anything. And like I tell all people all the time, if you had told me that my daughter was dealing with that anyway, I probably would have, honestly, cursed somebody out, and told them like we don't do that stuff. And so, again, you have to meet it with compassion and try to understand it. Even if you've never dealt with it in your life, you got to try to at least put yourself in their shoes and be a little empathetic. The thing that people say is a choice, I can understand where they're coming from, right? When you look at it from a perspective of someone who hasn't been affected directly, it's easy to dismiss it as, oh, they chose that life. But what about the surviving victims of human trafficking who was forced to take the drugs, whose body now can't really operate or function without going through withdrawal, which is nearly dying while living, and so they have to feed that to feel normal. What about the people who had surgery and fell into the addiction because of the pain opioids that they were prescribed? Like, it's not always somebody just, hanging out with friends and giving in to peer pressure who decide to try drugs for the first time. If we're going to look at it as a choice, think about the people who was facing emotional turmoil that, cried out for help, but didn't get it from the people that said that they loved them the most. And so they felt like they were at a place where they, probably didn't want to live anymore, but were afraid to die. And so the substances was something that they explored to just make them in a state where they just wouldn't feel anymore. So we just have to open our minds to what's the real behind the story.
Grief is surreal. And the pain is never ending. Never ending. She does send me signs every day, so I'm grateful for that. Knowing that she's with us, but the heartache and the hardship. Learn the signs of overdose. Educate yourself on just what fentanyl is, how it can affect a person. Narcan, have it in your home, have it on your person. Educate yourself. Like I said, it's very simple in the spray form. It does come in the liquid injector form, but knowledge and understanding. Because as a parent, as a mom who loved and loves, her children, because she has younger siblings, and as young as 2. And they'll never meet the Jayla that I got to meet, So, yeah. Get to know me for yourself. Chasing for you. Chasing for
something I don't know what to do. Dying for you, dying for you. I'm killing myself just so you feel love, you never feel you. Kryptonite.